regular displays as well as mobile devices are collectively referred to as spots within blocks. In block 3 we changed the names of some spot types. So what was previously called a mobile spot is now called a visitor spot, and what was previously called a virtual spot has been renamed to location, and hopefully these names better represent what these spot types are typically used for. Another new feature is that a display spot can now be added even if the physical device isn't yet available. That wasn't possible before. And then it will be added as an unassigned spot. And that's useful when you want to program for those spots, but you don't yet have the hardware. So let's go ahead and add a display here. Let's call it first display. Okay, so it gets added over here, but it's not yet actually connected to a physical display. And I'll now go ahead and connect a physical display, and we'll be right back and take a look at how you can now assign that to this spot. So I now connected a PIXILAB player to the system, and it's just started up, but it's not yet configured. So I can go back into this display that we added earlier, and then I can locate the ID number of the spot I just added, and then I can reassign this display to that particular player. And then of course it will connect right up, and then I can continue using it as normal. But even before I actually connected it physically, you could still access it by its name, and you can program it in tasks and do any of the other preparations that you may want to do before going on site where you have the actual display connected. Another thing that you can do is that if you have maybe some problem with the hardware that is driving this player, then you may want to replace that with another one. Right now I don't have another one connected to the system, but I'll swap out this physical player that we have here with another similar playback device, and then I'll show you how you can reassign this. And so I'll pause the recording here and I'll be right back. So now I plugged in another player, and you can see that the previous one is gone. It's no longer connected. There is no indication here about showing that the spot is online. So I can now go back into this spot, and I can reassign it to the newly connected player by its ID number that appears here, which is also shown on screen on that display spot right now. So I reassign it to that one, and then it connects right up, and it keeps all its settings as you can see here. So that's very handy if you need to replace a player because there's been a hardware problem or something like that, and you need to drop in another one, and you want to retain all the settings associated with that spot. Another thing that we've added to spots is that you can use numeric keys on a keyboard as inputs. And that's very handy if you just need to add a few inputs at the spot, like a few hardwired buttons or something like that. In order to use that capability, you need to go in and enable that right here. So now this player will recognize the numeric keys 0 through 9 as inputs. And then you can use those as inputs, for example, to trigger tasks or anything similar. So let's see where that appears. I'll go switch over to tasks. There's nothing in here, so I just add a first group and a first task here. Just name them something arbitrarily. And then I can go in and say I want this task to be triggered on a property change, and then I connect it to the spot, and the spot then has these key press inputs, and then I can say key 0 on that one. When that is pressed, that should trigger this task. So it works in exactly the same way as contact closure inputs, for example, connected through a Modbus, like a Moxa device or something like that. And there's a wide variety of hardware interfaces available to connect hardwired buttons and other sensors, and they essentially emulate the keyboard, and you just set them up so they emulate the key 0 through 9, or how many inputs are on that particular device. And there are some links in the show notes below that gives you more information about where you can find those kinds of input devices.